Hello everyone, my name is Anthony. I'm a peer advisor here at the UCR Career Center, and today I'm going to be sharing you a resume writing workshop because no matter how good our resume is, there's always something we could do to improve it for every future job we apply for. So the agenda today is to work on the resume format, the resume content, how to tailor your resume, and then a resume activity that you could try at home or when we're in a workshop together that this is what you might be doing. And again, the next steps you could take once you finish that resume. So what you'll be learning today and at the end of this workshop is communicating what a resume is and why it's important to your career development, identifying format and content ideas to implement on your own resume, and then understanding why and how to use a resume to articulate your experiences, your strengths, and your skills. So, just to recap with the NACE career readiness competencies, these are competencies that a large majority of employers really value in an applicant. And so, when we're talking about having these skills, we don't want to just say that we have them, we want to describe how we have them. So, on our resume, we might put, skills, leadership, teamwork, critical thinking, but it would be even better if within one of our experiences, like a volunteer experience or a club experience, in the bullet points, we could write about how we have teamwork skills, how we have critical thinking skills. So rather than saying, I have teamwork skills, in a bullet point, I could write, led a group meeting on this topic within the club organization to showcase how you have those teamwork skills. And in the same way, when you write a cover letter, you won't just say how you have teamwork skills. You're going to emphasize within the experience that you're trying to apply to the job you want. And even in an interview, when you get asked a question, can you tell me about a time you've engaged in teamwork? Again, you're not just going to say, I have teamwork skills. You're going to show how, explain more in depth as to how you've used those skills, how you have them. So apply that thinking to all your resumes because that is how you can develop great bullet points and great experiences to talk about, whether in a resume, cover letter, or in an interview. So, delving right into it, when it comes to developing your resume, what is the format is very important because a lot of employers receive a ton of applications, a bunch of resumes. So in order to get your foot in the door, you need to make sure a couple of things about your resume are on point. One key aspect is keeping it one page because, again, going back to how employers have to go through a lot of resumes, if you have a very long one that's hard to find all the relevant information, they might not have enough time to see all that you have to share that qualifies you for the job you're applying for, which is why keeping it one page is one great way to do that, so that you give them enough time to spot everything you have to share about why you're qualified so you can get your foot in the door. The way it's shown here, keep your name, education experience, leadership experience, and skills. When you format it, you want to prioritize putting your most recent works first, most recent experiences. However, if you are applying for something and it's more relevant to mention something you did a year ago as opposed to what you're doing something from right now, use the one from a year ago because the most relevant, most recent experiences are best. So if you're applying to, let's say, be a tutor and you tutored in high school, but at the moment you're just a cafeteria worker, even though the cafeteria working experience requires that customer service, it's better to mention that tutoring role even if it was from high school to show the relevant skills you've built up in the past that would qualify you for that job. Following this format is how to keep it easy to read, making it effective, and again, highlighting those most relevant experiences. So again, going back to the main sections on a resume, at the top, You're going to need your name and contact information, which is really important because even if it seems simple, if you misspell a letter, miswrite a number, and they want to reach out to you to give an interview, but you didn't put the right number or email, now you missed your chance because they aren't able to reach out to you. So always make sure to have that information there and correct, so that in the off chance, if the chance they want to go through with having an interview with you, they will be able to reach out to you with the right information. An objective is an optional section of a resume where you can describe your intent, like a statement of intent as to why you are, let's say, applying for a job. So you don't have to write a lot of detail, no more than 2 lines, basically just discussing your objective. So if you're applying to work for UCR Dining, your objective can be as simple as to obtain a position at UCR Dining. If you wanted to be a tutor at the ARC, it could be something as simple as to obtain a position of a tutor at the ARC. So it's just a way to show an employer your level of interest in the specific role you're applying for. But it's mainly optional because if you have more things that you could put on your resume that taking that out might save space for it, then you should take it out to put that other experience that could be better, because the main reason why you would put that is if you don't have enough to share on your resume, so you want to fill up space with more detail, more things that could build you a stronger resume. After your name or objective, you're going to always put your education at the top, because a lot of jobs require minimum a high school diploma for being qualified. So if you have your education at the bottom and the employer skimming like within less than 30 seconds and they don't spot that, they might not go through with you because they could assume, oh, they didn't even finish high school, they're not qualified, I can't interview them for this position because they're not qualified. And then not only that, there's a lot of internships or job positions that do require some level of college, somebody to be currently in pursuit of a degree. So even if you didn't finish your college degree, just being in pursuit of it is enough to mention it, and that's enough to qualify you for a lot of internship opportunities. So again, if you have it hidden, if you have it at the bottom of the resume, they might not be able to see it soon enough to certify, to feel confident in feeling as if you are qualified for the position that you're applying for. So that is why we keep it at the top. And you can also add anything extra to it, such as relevant coursework. So if you're applying for a research position to work in a lab and you've taken a couple of classes in biochemistry and biology, then you can put it underneath your degree in your education, the relevant courses you've taken. If you're trying to apply for a computer science internship and you want to give a stronger impression of your expertise, you can put underneath your computer science degree relevant courses in different computer science classes. Next, it's going to always be your experiences. So this can range from anything as far as work, like a paid opportunity, maybe a volunteer opportunity, being involved in a club, in a sports team, even as simple as tutoring your little cousin. That's something that you could write down as an experience. Going back to the NACE career competencies, if any experience that you're thinking of utilizes any of those career competencies, such as critical thinking, communication, teamwork, then they would be eligible to be considered an experience if you have the confidence of writing it down. If you can word it properly, if you can elaborate more on it, then it's definitely applicable to be an experience on a resume. You can also add more things such as campus involvements, such as being a volunteer for any of our student programs departments. If you're happening to be a peer mentor to a first year, then that's something you can add on there. And then technical skills are skills that are more, again, hard technical skills, such as computer programs, if you know how to use Microsoft PowerPoint, Google Docs, Zoom, Canva, and also languages, such as if you know more than just English. And then if you are applying for more of like a research position, like working in a lab, you can also, after your education, add things like your laboratory skills. So engaging in any of those, if you happen to be interested in a position, for example, going into research, adding your laboratory skills at the top would be beneficial to show your expertise again. But if it's just for a job, all you need to focus on is mainly your experiences. Again, your name, contact info, objective, which is optional, education, and experiences and technical skills. So now I'm going to go more in depth about the components of a resume. So again, what counts as an experience? They can be paid or unpaid work, internships, research opportunities, presentations such as in a classroom or a public speaking event kind of experience, student organization involvement, such as if you're a part of ASUCR or ASPB, any of those student orgs on campus, community service experience. If you're a part of this organization that picks up trash on the side of the road, that counts. Volunteering, if you helped volunteer for some high school, for some event, that counts. Class projects, working on a presentation within a group, that counts. Major assignments, such as if you had a coding assignment within your class. Labs, so if you got the chance to work with different chemicals or lab tubes, that counts as an experience. And even a senior thesis or a capstone project. All of these are relevant to be considered experiences for a resume. Going a little more in depth with the education, you're always going to want to bold the degree than the school. Because even if you graduated at Harvard or Stanford, when you apply to a specific job that's asking for that degree, they're not going to look at the school as much as the degree to make sure that you are qualified in the area of what you're applying for. Because it will matter in some instances, the school name, if the company itself hires directly from specific schools, but for the most part, you're always going to want to highlight that degree. So whether it's a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration Marketing or a Bachelor of Science in Biology, it's better to highlight the degree over the school. Just again, to highlight that key requirement they might be asking for. And then if you still want to fill up your application, your resume with more things, you can add, for example, if you received an associate's degree from a community college, maybe your high school diploma, you're always going to put the dates on the right side, and they don't have to specify more than just your either graduation year and month or expected graduation year and month. But always put the most recent degree first, including the most recent degree you're currently in pursuit of. Again, dates on the right side to balance the page. You can add any minors you may have been in pursuit of at school, such as if you're getting a minor in philosophy, a minor in business administration. You can add any double majors and concentrations. For example, in this case, this is a concentration in marketing for business administration. And then you're always going to only list schools from which you have received a degree from. So if you've pursued community college but you did not receive your associates, then you shouldn't be putting your community college experience unless you received an associate's. What you can do if you want to include any relevant coursework you took from your time at community college is you can put it underneath your University of California Riverside relevant coursework. So even if you didn't take those classes at UCR, those credits, those units that you took at the community college will transfer over to UCR, and that is why it's still connected and why you could put it underneath the relevant coursework for UCR, because all the units you took at community college will apply there. But if you got your associates, you can also mention that. GPA is optional, so if you're comfortable sharing it, then you can add it. However, if an application is specifically requiring a minimum GPA and you have that minimum or a little bit above that, then it would be beneficial to add it to your resume so that again you can check off another requirement of what they're looking for in an applicant. And then again, relevant courses, or if you studied abroad, all things that you can add again to your education underneath the degree in school. Now I'm going to go a little bit into the TAR method. So when we're helping out students write their bullet points, it's important to be as descriptive as possible and specifically try to describe what was the task that you were doing within that experience, what actions did you take to complete that task, and then what was the result of working towards and completing that task. So let's just think about it with these examples. This is a peer mentor role for the Academic Resource Center. See, so let's say deliver academic support for students encountering academic difficulty to aid in skills and study habits to achieve success in their undergraduate education. So now let's see a little closer what are the task, action, and results in this resume description. So the red line will represent the task. So let's say deliver academic support for students encountering academic difficulty. So that's the task. They have to deliver academic support. But, how did they do that? How did they, you know? So even though it sounds good, you could also add more detail. For example, what action did they do? Like, did they deliver academic support utilizing lesson plans? Did they provide them feedback? Did they provide them tutoring resources or give them some, counseling or just like overall like tutoring in general? And then the result in turn was to aid in skills and study habits to achieve success in their undergraduate education. I'll point out this one at the bottom. This is an example of a good one. However, it is a bit long. So always try to keep your bullet points no more than 2 lines. And every experience could have no more than, let's say, 3 to 4 bullet points. So this one is saying designed and implemented new virtual strategies. So that could be, if that was the whole bullet point, it would seem a bit empty, right? But that's why you can add things like the action. So they designed and implemented new virtual strategies using Zoom and Slack. So these are two different computer programs that enable them to design and implement these virtual strategies. But what was the result? So they used Zoom and Slack to onboard new mentors and mentees during COVID-19, which resulted in new sustainable curriculum for all future incoming mentors. So again, it's one thing to say, let's say if you were describing a dishwashing experience, you could just put wash the dishes, but you can go more in depth. For example, did you have to follow directions from a supervisor? Were you given a list of tasks to follow? So you were saying completed given tasks from supervisor to sanitize dishware, to provide clean dishes for upcoming work shift. So you see, it's one thing to say wash dishes, and then it's another to be more detailed in all the aspects about what it is you were doing besides just simply washing dishes. And this is how you can make your experience more maneuverable to different applications, because now that you're more aware of how to write it as detailed as possible, if you're reading an application and it's asking for an applicant to have a certain skill set, you can rewrite your experience to tailor it to what it is they're asking for. So let's go further in. Every bullet point would benefit from starting with an action verb, because instead of saying something like I wash dishes, administered custodial duties, analyzed assortment of needed tasks to be completed. It's more professional to add those action verbs. And a lot of times when you are looking at a job description, they're going to start off their bullet points for their description with action verbs. So getting a little ahead, but you're going to deal with an applicant tracking system like an AI that's analyzing all the words sometimes for some companies. And a way to bypass that is by using these action verbs to, hold on a moment, just to repeat myself, utilizing these action verbs will help you, one, attack that applicant tracking system so that you can highlight highlight those relevant experiences you have to that application. Again, you'll see it on those job descriptions. They will utilize action verbs, and if you keep them within your bullet points, that'll be one, a professional way to write them out, but also match them similar to what they're asking for in their job description. So pay attention to the keywords you see in those job descriptions, because those could be, again, the action verbs you will get to use. So your resume in action, tailoring your document to a job description. So even though it is convenient to use the same resume for every job you apply for, it is not convenient if you are really trying to get after a specific job, because every position will be asking for different skill sets, different duties, different responsibilities, and if your resume could be tailored to match that, but because it's tailored to a different type of position, it might not build as strong of a chance to really get your foot in the door for that specific job. So when you tailor it, you should keep in mind your relevance to the position. So move things around, word some bullet points a bit differently so that you could attack that relevancy that is needed for the application you're applying for. Keeping in mind keywords in the job description for the applicant tracking system, attention to details such as the action verbs that are being used, and showing them how you know the company, its goals, and that you understand the industry. That is the purpose behind tailoring your resume. So let's look at this sample job description. So the program, it's a data science leadership development program. It's describing all the details about it, and then it's also listing the qualifications. They want someone with a bachelor's degree, preferably in any of these: computer science, data science, or mathematics, or all these other ones, a GPA of 3.2 or greater, strong desire and motivation to develop career as a future leader in data science, able to manage, plan, and prioritize projects. So when you're trying to tailor your resume to something like this, you should keep in mind key aspects that you could write down in your resume. So, such as, okay, your education, that's why you'll highlight the bachelor's degree in mathematics if you have that, because that's what they're asking for. If you have a GPA of 3.2, a little bit over that, you can highlight that as well. A strong desire and motivation to develop a career as a future leader. You can write that in your objective to develop a career as a future leader in data science. And they'll see, whoa, so this is basically up their alley. They're really interested in this. Ability to manage, plan, and prioritize projects. If you have a club experience where you had to schedule meetings, schedule appointments, write things down, lists, you can use this bullet point as a way to note that aspect in your club experience that's relevant for this. So experience in data collection and analysis. Maybe there's a minor project you did related to data collection and analysis, but it's at the bottom of your resume. You could raise that up higher and then specifically mention those aspects of data collection and analysis. So again, demonstrating leadership aptitude, learning ability, and adaptability. You can mention how in a bullet point you adapted to different changing scenarios in the workplace. So that is a way to tailor your resume by identifying these different key aspects that they're asking for and tailoring your resume to match their description. So going into it, before I mentioned the applicant tracking system known as the ATS, and it's just a software recruiters and employers use in order to track potential candidates throughout the recruiting and hiring process. So it utilizes different software that can make a simple search of a resume more defined. So if, let's say, they're trying to find a specific type of resume that's relevant to everything in their job description, they're going to take into consideration all the key bullet points, the keywords, the vocabulary, the mentions of technical skills, and then it's going to give a grade as to how relevant or how connected the resume is to the job description. So as of 2019, 99% of the Fortune 500 companies used an ATS in their hiring process. These companies already have the brand recognition and resources to compete for top talent, and ATS can level the playing field by creating better, quicker access to candidates. So they just want an easier opportunity to filter, manage, and analyze candidates, and that's what the applicant tracking system does. So why it's important is because these tracking systems will likely be the first impression of your resume before a person sees it. So even if it's really, really well written and there's so many beautiful things about it, if the applicant tracking system does not spot the key words, the key aspects that are supposed to be relevant for the position you're applying for, you might be hidden. So that's why it's important to highlight, the importance of tailoring your resume, incorporating those key skills, action verbs, and language, again, so that you can bypass the applicant tracking system and eventually have an employer see your resume. So weave in recurring preferred qualifications and skills and tailor your current skills and experiences to match the job description you're applying for. So what else will you need after you try developing your resume? You can get a resume review here at the UCR Career Center, either with one of us peer advisors or with the career specialist if you schedule an appointment. You can develop your LinkedIn profile so that you can have a better chance of getting recruiters to seek you out, or when you put your LinkedIn on your resume, if they want to see more information about you, they can see everything you have in your LinkedIn, which doesn't have to be limited to one page. It can be as long as you want it. And then keep in mind a references page. I did not specify before, but you'll never want to put references on your resume because those will be asked upon if they want references from you. So on its own, don't put any references on your resume. Sometimes in a job application, maybe they'll ask for references. That's where you can keep in mind, okay, who can I ask as a reference? Maybe my past professor, maybe my past employer, maybe my club leader, maybe somebody that has seen me like engage in things that would help, even a career specialist, they could potentially be a reference for you. So it's important to keep these references in mind and then give them when asked to give them, but don't put it on your resume. So now we're going to just run through a quick resume workshop activity, something that you could try out at home. So step one, prepare your materials. So the easiest way to get started with writing a resume is having a job position in mind. So you can either, one, for option A, take out your general resume and then grab a desired position or job opportunity with the job description so that you can practice tailoring. Or if you don't have a resume, you can open a Google Doc to create a general resume. The best way to get started with formatting it is going to our website, careers.ucr.edu, hovering over the Students tab, hovering over the Getting Hired section, and then clicking on the resume template so that you can see the kinds of resumes you could build depending on your specific major. So for option A, you're going to put in action what it is that's on your resume and what's on the job description. So get that job description that you might be interested in pursuing, name the document with your last name, first name, title of the job to keep track, and then highlight those technical skills they're asking for, any computer software they might be using, any languages they might have you speaking. Look at those action verbs within the bullet points of their requirements for the job, and then pay attention to the requirements or preferred qualifications such as a high school diploma, currently in pursuit of a college degree, maybe a specific major, and then you can highlight those specific things within your resume. And option B, in the meantime that you're building your resume, perhaps for the first time, try to come up with detailed bullet points for potential experiences you want to mention. So remember back the TAR method, task, action, result. When you write these bullet points, even just brainstorming, what is it? What did you do? What were your duties, responsibilities, and or projects? How did you do it? What specific tools, resources, or technology did you use? And elaborate how you did it, how often, what was the purpose, who was involved, how many people were involved. Use numbers if possible. That's a good thing to get started. And then the result. What were the results? What did you accomplish or improve? Did you meet or exceed a goal? Did you create something new? And this is another scenario where you can use numbers too. So look at this example here. This person's task was to direct customers to items, let's say in a store. And then the action was that they had to develop a new merchandising strategy in order to direct these customers to items. And then the result, increased daily store revenue by 9% and average sales per customer by 12%. So they can take all this together and combine it into a bullet point to say something like developed a merchandising strategy to direct customers to higher margin products that increased average daily store revenue by 9% and average sales per customer by 12%. So if you need more ideas for brainstorming what to fill out on your resume, you can look at our resume worksheet that we give to UCR students. Write all the relevant information down, your name, contact info on this worksheet to keep to yourself. Write up a potential objective if you'd like, education, all your experiences to come up with more just ideas for what to write down. And then picking a general format for the resume, because it's nice to see colors, it's nice to see cool designs, but again, these employers are only seeing your resume for sometimes a dozen seconds, sometimes less than 30 seconds. And so the more concise you make it, the more simple you make it, the easier it is for them to see all the relevant experiences so that you can get your foot in the door. There's more examples and templates on our website. So if you're a psychology major, a history major, art major, a business major, an engineering major, you can look at the different types of resume formats that might be more applicable to your major. So if you're in a group potentially, try to match up with someone who chose a similar option to you, option A or option B, to help discuss with resume building tips and share resume tailored job descriptions if applicable, and then write down 2 suggestions for your partner's resume. And you can always visit our career center during any of these workshops, and then you can ask us questions, and then we can give you more advice to address your questions. So final step, or one of the final steps, after sharing learning tips from the presentation and having someone else make sure to consider these last points, of what to include in your resume. So resumes, depending on major, vary to industry, and career specialists or a peer advisor can help guide to determine what is most relevant to what it is you're trying to apply for and what it is you've done. Creating a resume requires you to consider what skills you'd like to showcase and prioritize what employers want to see. So again, if you're applying for a restaurant job, maybe highlight more of the specific skill sets that would be relevant for a restaurant. If you're trying to apply for a tutoring position, highlight the experiences and skill sets more relevant for that of a tutor. Formatting and specific content on the resume will be considered when employers review resumes, so always refer to the job description. Practice makes progress, and if you are struggling with editing your experience section, you're always welcome to visit any of the drop-ins with one of us peer advisors to review your resume. So, step 3, reflect and edit. Any questions? If you have any questions, you can always call the UCR Career Center. We are open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Our number is 951-827-3631. We're located next to the ARC, across from the ARC at Sky Hall, next to the University Lecture Hall, underneath the bookstore, and again, open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is our QR code for the website, our QR code for the peer advising drop-in hours, and then again, you could always visit our website, careers.ucr.edu, to see more information, again, for these resume templates or workshop videos or presentations so that you could begin starting that resume building. You can also connect with us here on Instagram, where we release different updates such as changes to, upcoming events, maybe new events that we have coming soon. If there's ever a coffee chat with an employer outside the Career Center, that you all can be made known about it. And again, just keep in touch with what's going on at the Career Center. So always definitely give us a call if you have any questions, walk in at the front desk, or come visit the peer advisors for their drop-in hours, because we are happy to help.